Hi there, welcome back to your virtual studio. I'm Zuri, and I'm happy to lead you today through a short movement and asana practice. 2 blocks are optional for today's practice. When you're ready, I'll meet you standing on your mat. I'm going to come here to the center of my practice space, but you're welcome to come towards the top of the mat or anywhere where you're comfortable in your practice space. We're starting standing, and we might start right away with a little bit of movement. So when you're ready, let's just start by lifting both arms up. Maybe taking a nice breath in as you do so. And continue to reach and stretch, maybe squeezing your fingers and hands into fists and rolling those wrists around, moving the fingers, opening and closing. And taking another couple of breaths here. This is a great place to stay, or this can also be a great place to stay, just kind of moving the arms up and down. Or if you are looking to wake up or release a little bit of energy, the next time that your arms are up, I'm going to invite you to give it a little shake. And maybe start to move the arms down and around as you give them a little shake. And if it feels good, see if you shake the legs. See how much you can shake from your body. Or you might just be standing and moving the arms up and down. Right, you can include any little neck movement, any little organic movement now, and until maybe little by little, some of that shaking starts to slow down. And we can start to find a little bit of stillness somewhere towards the top of the mat, just rooting down towards a gentle mountain pose. The eyes might soften or close. Can the attention move just to your organic breath now? Noticing the vibrations, the energy that you've gently stimulated. And just welcoming yourself to this moment, a moment of mindful movement with yourself, for yourself, body, mind, soul. On the next breath in, let's reach both arms back up towards the ceiling, and the eyes might start to flutter open again. Let's reach both arms a little bit higher, maybe this time bringing the attention to the shoulder blades. Can the scapulas elevate? And can the scapulas, as your arms start moving down to the side of the body, can you feel those shoulder blades moving downward, right? They kind of glide down the back of the rib cage as your arms come down. And then slowly let the arms come up. Can the palms rotate, right? Can the forearms rotate to face up as you reach up? And then they might face down as you lower the arms, and feel the armpits moving down towards imaginary pockets down by your ankles. Lifting up, lift those shoulder blades up towards the ears, and let's stay here now. Now move the arms away just about halfway, or maybe even less, more like a wide V. Internally rotate the arm bones here and reach behind you. We're going for some controlled shoulder articulations. As we reach back, pause, and imagine someone's going to give you a couple of high fives. In fact, maybe even pulse a little bit. Try to resist the urge to round your spine forward. Really keep the integrity of lengthened spine. Maybe that means squeezing your feet into the ground and pretending to slide your mat apart with both feet. They don't actually move, but the muscles of your legs are on, rooting your body so that you can do this motion without slouching or letting the lower body borrow from this movement, right? We're not borrowing here, just the arms. Good. Probably getting a little tired now. So now let's start to move into the rest of our circles, reaching the arms out and around until the arms slowly reach up. Let the arms come forward. Again, this time palms and forearms facing up. Try to really push forward as if you're trying to push someone or a wall or a door as your arms are coming down. And then let's repeat that, coming up. Push, push, push as you lift. Notice the shoulder blades, they've elevated towards the ears. As your arm bones move down and away, they start to also move down and away. We can reach back. We can lower all the way down to the side of the hips, right? Try to really close out that circle. And then reverse, go back, move the arms away from the body, reaching up and back. Feel free to rest or go for one more circle. I'm going to do one more quick set here, lifting up, out, internal rotation to drive my arm bones for that imaginary high five. Letting them come down. I'm pushing the armpits down and letting everything come back up. The next time both arms are up towards the ceiling, right? Maybe meet me here. Let your left arm come back down to the side of the body. Your right arm stays elevated. Keep the feet rooted, side bend. Keep reaching that right arm up and over. Try to see that your pelvis is still steady. Try to see that we haven't yet kind of shifted the pelvis off to the side and that, or to either side, right? Can the legs be sturdy and just kind of the side of the rib cage opens up. And then just switch sides. See what it's like to lift the opposite arm and reach up, reach with that shoulder blade, and then there's nowhere to go. So then we tip over and we start to notice that opening through the right side or the left side of the rib cage. Pelvis is stable. You can even use your hands like I'm doing here to kind of palpate and see where is the pelvis in space. Good. Come back to center. Let's do that one more time. Little side bend each side. Keep the legs rooted. And shifting to the other side. And then coming back to center. Tucking the chin for a spinal articulation, moving downward towards a forward fold. We tuck the chin and slowly let the next segment of our spine shift forward. And the legs are still stable so that we haven't yet sunk into either the knees or the ankles or anything in the lower body because we're still working up here. And then little by little, once we're finished with the spine, we can start to shift into the pelvis. We can let the knees respond. And we can take our forward fold however we'd like to here. Either just letting the trunk spill over the legs as much or as little as it likes. We can bring the blocks in here for a little bit more support, letting the ground lift a little closer rather than the upper body moving towards the ground. And another option is just widening the legs, any amount here. And so you can morph this forward fold however it feels best for you. The intention, however, is that we are hinging from our pelvis and allowing the spine to just kind of hang with gravity a little bit. Doesn't matter how low we are. Maybe even letting the head release a couple of times. And then we're going to articulate our way back up. So when you're ready, start to shift the weight more to your feet, pushing the ground away. Notice where the legs are playing a role here. The legs move first. The legs set the tone first. The pelvis sets itself in space. The rest of the spine can slowly stack over the pelvis, slowly meeting in a standing position and going back very slowly one more time, segment by segment. First the upper spine. Almost like imagine counting each little joint in your spine. Eventually, we hinge at the pelvis. We may or may not bend the knees a lot or a little bit. We may or may not have our blocks underneath our hands. Take what you need here and say hello to this second forward fold. Maybe grabbing opposite elbows. And then from here, we're going to start to meet in downward facing dog. So you might start to bend the knees a little bit. If you'd like to skip downward facing dog, you're welcome to meet me in tabletop position. We'll set the hands down, bring the feet back. And just take a little moment pressing the ground away, maybe pedaling the feet. If you're in tabletop, you might move the spine in a couple of cat and cow variations. Any organic movement, hip circles or trunk circles. And just taking one more breath wherever you are. If you're in tabletop position, we're going to go ahead and move the knees back behind the line of the pelvis to create a short plank. And if you're in downward dog, meet me in plank pose, either with the knees down, how I've just demonstrated from tabletop, or keep the knees up. Let's take another breath here, really pressing the ground away in our plank pose of choice. On the next breath, let's elevate the hips, downward facing dog. With the knees down, we can take hips to heels, puppy pose variation, or child's pose variation, and then shift back. Pelvis, or the top of the pelvis, is open in this little short plank meets cobra variation. This is open game for anyone. This is a yummy variation, and you can always transition to and fro, going to a little downward facing dog and plank pose. So those are two options, a couple of times on your own. Feel free to pause or get creative in any way. Feel like getting into a little bit of a side plank, so we can play a little bit here, finding a little bit of a pivot. I'm keeping my legs separated as to not make it such a challenging side plank. Each leg is in each row. I'm not stacking anything right now, but you're welcome to stack whatever you need. And then maybe on the next breath, let's meet back in tabletop position. Perhaps resting with the hips towards the heels, child's pose variation. Or you can sit up in a kneeling position, maybe elevating the head. I'm just taking a little moment here to find your breath. If you have a block, you can take that child's pose variation and morph it, maybe finding a block underneath the forehead. And let's take one more breath. Waking things back up to move towards tabletop position. From tabletop, the left leg will meet back behind us, lifting the leg, bending the knee while the thigh bone is elevated, going for 2 or 3 hip cars or controlled hip circles. There's 1, 2, maybe there's 3 for you, maybe there's 4 or less. Reverse it when you're ready. Try to keep the upper body nice and stable by pushing energetically into both arms. Maybe pushing more into the right hand if the left leg is moving. Switching sides at your pace when you're ready. Opposite leg moves back, elevating, bending the knee, finding our controlled rotations, pressing into both arms. Noticing where the energy has to shift through the left arm. If we need a little bit of extra support, can we push into the left arm a bit more? Good. Finishing out your hip circles here, your controlled hip cars. And then you might take a little pause once more, either child pose or kneeling. I'm taking a little toe tuck position here while I roll out my hands and wrists. Meeting back in tabletop position. This time we're gonna do just a quick little half circle with the left leg. We're gonna lift that up, little half circle to kick that left leg off to the side. Maybe a little pivot, turning the left toes as much as we want to send our weight and kind of lean into a little side lunge. I feel kind of like a spider here. And that's a great place to kind of hang out and explore some lines of stretch, or kind of keep rocking and exploring back and forth. This is going to become a lunge, so a low lunge. So we're actually going to travel and start to take that foot eventually towards the top of the mat. And then eventually we start to move and bring our trunk over the pelvis. Really stacking this low lunge for a moment, making sure that our right knee is happy, or whichever knee is on the floor. And we're gonna set the pelvis with our tailbone pointing down just to help stabilize us in this position a bit more. Set the left foot down, hug that front foot down, and drag your foot as if you're pulling the mat backwards. It doesn't move, but the energy is there. The arms can elevate next. Let's take a nice breath in. As you exhale, round your spine forward, just the upper spine. Good. Left arm draws a little semicircle as we start to rotate this low lunge. This is a great place to stay or hinge forward. Can that right hand find the inside of the right foot? Hinging forward. Now our revolved lunge has changed. The back knee can stay down, or this can become a side angle pose variation by untucking or by tucking the right toes, maybe lifting the right knee off the floor, or you can keep it where you had it. All right, it's a couple of little variations here. I said side angle pose variation, revolved side angle pose, to be more specific. Let's get into side angle pose, why not? Let's pivot now. Left hand to the inside of the left foot. Back heel can find the floor. Your left hand can also come to a block. And then we can revolve the right arm up. So letting the trunk face the opposite side of the mat for a moment. And coming back to set our hand down, stepping back to downward facing dog. Forgive my little tongue tie there. Now you can enjoy this downward facing dog in stillness, or add a little movement, a little flow of your choice. And now let's make our way back through plank into tabletop position, both knees down. And resetting so that the opposite leg, maybe the right leg, moves into that half circle until that right foot can step out, maybe turning into a little angle, leaning into that side lunge. And again, morphing this shape and exploring here. Couple of moments, couple of angles on your own, maybe a little hamstring stretch. For some reason, I'm getting some information actually on my left hip. When I'm leaning into the right side, I'm getting some stuff from my left hip, and it feels good, it feels interesting. So just to say that sometimes when we go into this lunge, like anticipating maybe a hamstring stretch on the right side, we might get some information from somewhere else completely, and that's cool. Remember that we're traveling. We're actually going to move into our low lunge by shifting that right foot forward and moving into a little bit more of this stacked lunge. Pelvis is stacking over the left knee, and we're going to set the pelvis a little bit more pointed down, a little bit more sturdy. If the wind was blowing a little harder, we're more stabilized, right? We're not going to shift anywhere. We're not going to fall. Let's bring both arms up. Taking a nice breath in. As you exhale, round the upper spine forward, fingertips reaching forward. And let's take a little twist. The right arm draws a semicircle, reaching up and over. This is a great place to stay, or we can hinge, letting the left hand find the floor. We can also stay here, or the left toes can tuck, giving space for the left knee to come off the floor, if that feels good. Really pressing, all the points that are pressing into the ground, press them. And then the arm that's reaching up, can it really reach? And then we switch into a side angle pose variation. Right hand moves to the inside of the foot or onto a block, and the left arm can reach up towards the ceiling. From here, we rotate back, downward facing dog. Feel free to skip this downward facing dog. Maybe meet me in tabletop position or cat and cow. And then we're slowly going to meet in a belly down position. So shifting eventually towards Sphinx pose. I'm moving through plank. You're welcome to meet me in plank pose first. Maybe you start to bring the knees down, a slow release into a short plank, and a slow pull eventually until the heart gets a little closer to the ground. And then shifting onto our forearms. I'm sliding backwards to get back to the center of my mat. And we're going to settle here into our Sphinx pose. Forearms are in front of us here. I like to do this little thing where I hold opposite elbows, just to kind of give me an idea that my arms are not too wide, unless this is what I want. This is a great place to be too. There's so much things, or so many things that you can access from this shape. So not saying that this is ever a bad shape, but for our Sphinx pose variation, maybe seeing that the elbows are under the shoulders. The hands now, as they reach forward, they're gonna, like your palms, you're really gonna try to grip the mat. Can you try to slide yourself forward? And then your feet, maybe they're pointed and sending energy downward into the earth. If we were mermaids, we would be able to shwa, kind of slam our tail down into the earth as we also reach the crown of our head upwards and pull and keep this grip of our arms against the floor, reaching our gaze up. Just slightly forward and up, not all the way up to the ceiling. Good. Feel free to stay in this Sphinx pose as long as you'd like. You can let it get a little loosey-goosey. You can hang out a little bit. You can even try that wider, kind of softer Sphinx pose. And then when you're ready, you can start to just settle further down. Maybe allowing the forehead to find the mat or your hands, letting your head rest. And maybe here, as you're lying on your belly, we can use the floor, we can use the ground as some feedback, letting the belly, letting the rib cage kind of expand into the ground. And by connection through the foundation of this building, maybe you're connecting to the earth. Wherever you are, come back to your breath and allow your breath to be your focal point for the next few moments. You're welcome to stay with your head down, facing on your belly. Facing down, I mean. Or you can flip over like I am, turning into a little supine shavasana. And just observing your organic breath, the in and out flow and release. Continue to observe your breath here. And feel free to stay for as long as you need. When you're ready to continue with your day, simply deepen your breath little by little. But until then, stay and enjoy.